Hello. Good evening. Hello, this is Tulsa Web Devs. Who's not here for Tulsa Web Devs? This is your chance to leave before it gets crazy. What am I supposed to do? Yeah, I'm trying to. There's all sorts of wonderful things. Okay, so welcome to Tulsa Web Devs. We meet. This is one of 2 monthly activities that are part of Techlahoma. We do this every third. What is this? The third Monday, and on the first Tuesday we do Hack Nights. All right. So we have other user groups, but what is Techlahoma? Techlahoma is a statewide nonprofit organization that does 30 meetups, 2 annual conferences, and lots of other events. If you haven't found our website or the GitHub repo, I suggest you go there to read our code of conduct, but put succinctly, it means be nice to everybody. Don't be a jerk. So, right? Isn't that the overall summary of our code of conduct?
Yeah, did you go past the sponsors? Because I have
Where?
I added, well, it's the top
Is there, did you put a July one on there?
a special thing in there. If you reload,
Okay.
it's not July.
Yep.
Oh, are you in June?
There,
or July?
there's the,
Yeah, July is in there. If you go over to the right side. Go to the right hand side. Show more pages.
oh, got it,
July
July, June,
There it is.
and there he is, okay. Yeah.
How many
If you can't tell, I freeze whenever there's a camera on me. My brain slows down.
Here, there's a special shout out in here to Lobeck Taylor Family Foundation. So we applied for and just received a grant from Lobeck Taylor Family Foundation. Woohoo! Thanks, Lobeck Taylor. So their grant is basically funding these programs: Django Girls, She Codes Tulsa, Free Code Camp, Tulsa Web Devs, Courtbot, and 200OK. So Lobeck Taylor Family Foundation, very generous, helping support all of those Techlahoma programs, including this one. And one of the ones that's very applicable to this one that you need to start telling people about is that they specifically are helping us fund childcare during Tulsa Web Devs meetups. So if you know people where childcare is maybe like the thing that's keeping them from being able to come, we're starting to work up how we can provide childcare like in a breakout room, and we'll have like a licensed childcare provider that will be here and can be there with the kids if that's keeping people from, if you know of people where childcare is the issue that's keeping them from getting here, definitely tell them to keep an eye on this group because we are going to start providing that thanks to Lobeck Taylor Family Foundation. So I think that's it. That's it for me.
Oh, wow, all right, yay. All right, so how many people have been to a meeting like this, to a Web Devs meeting? Yay, we got some newcomers in the back. Don't worry, we won't make you come up here and announce yourselves, but this portion is for you to explain what we're doing. We meet once a month. We have a couple of breakouts. Oh, am I supposed to read all this stuff about Techlahoma, ways to, yeah?
Run through it real fast.
Okay, real fast. Okay, so you want to support Techlahoma. Number one, if you're new and we're super glad you made it here. If you haven't made it to the Slack channel yet, there should be a link here, or any one of us can give it to you. I think it's slack.techlahoma.org. Is that right? Somebody check me. Okay. That will get you onto all of our communication channels for all of the different things. Luke mentioned Courtbot, which is a project of Code for Tulsa. A couple of us were at a hackathon this Saturday working on Courtbot. There's a lot of cool stuff going on in that project, so if you're interested, talk to one of us. We can tell you more about it. You can go to the store and you can buy cool Techlahoma gear, which I have. You can get t-shirts, mugs, that sort of thing. Okay. Also, we need a shout out to 36 Degrees North, who provides this space to us. Everybody say hey to Rachel. Yay. All right. And there's plenty of other interesting things going on during the month. I encourage you to check that out. All right, so what do we have in terms of breakouts tonight? We have web localization. Leslie, you want to give us a quick overview of what you want to talk about tonight? Yeah, come. Now you gotta, there's a camera watching. Oh, there it is. You what?
I don't have a pitch ready.
What are you gonna talk about?
Localization.
There you go. What is localization?
Anybody here unfamiliar with the term localization? I was. Okay, hey, thank you, Josh, for participating. So localization is the process by which a website becomes location agnostic. It's what allows a website to become something that anyone, anywhere in the world can access and see content in the language they are familiar with and in the style they are familiar with.
There you go.
There you go. There's my pitch.
And doing that is not easy. Code katas. Who's gonna do that one? Who's here for the code katas? Oh, come on up. Oh, I didn't do this. You need to shout out your name.
Leslie.
Yeah, that's Leslie. Leslie's with Mozilla, doing amazing localization stuff.
Okay. Hello, I'm Adam. Came here through Tulsa Remote Program, so I'm new to the area. In years past, I've done the Code Katas meetup in St. Pete, Florida. And basically, we go on to codewars.com. If you haven't seen that site, you can check it out now. And we do what's called Code Katas or code challenges, where you solve a challenge using your language of choice, JavaScript, Python, Ruby, whatever it is, and you create the algorithm that solves the challenge. So this is specifically directed at more so beginners, at least this particular meetup will be. So if you're new to programming or even intermediate, then you might want to check it out and see how you can improve your coding through Code Katas. So the site allows you, we can pick a challenge that has test cases in different languages. So we can, if we have people in the room that are doing Java, Ruby, Python, we can just choose a question that has all of those tests set up already. Yeah.
All right. I've done plenty of Code Wars. If you've got, be careful. It's a great way to spend time. You will learn a lot, but you will spend a lot of time on it. It's a bunch of fun. So, all right. Do we have any other announcements, or anybody have anything they want to talk about tonight to do another breakout that you just didn't get a chance to put on the wiki? Anyone? All right. So we've got the two breakouts. So the way we do this is we just try and figure out which rooms we're going to fit in. Okay. So how many folks are going to do localization? That's 1, 2. I told you not. I can't do math while people are watching me, so look away. Okay, how many for the code katas? Okay, that looks like a smaller number. So why don't we put code katas in the boardroom? I think that'd probably be perfect for what you're doing, and then we'll do localization out here. So what we do is we'll break for, I don't know, 5 minutes, right, to get everybody set up. And then how long are we going to go tonight? How long do you think your localization is going to be?
How long does it need to be?
No, how long is it going to be?
I haven't timed it.
Oh, okay. You think?
Max half hour.
Okay, so we're going to go to 7 code katas. Why don't we set a limit at 7:30 max time, okay, for both events? Because I know you could just do code katas all night long. So, all right. Anything else? That's it. Okay, great. Everybody.
think I found the missing link.
Which plug do you need?
I've got. So when I plug this in, is it gonna like show my screen?
It's going to show your screen here. It will not show it here until you're ready.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
You know how to set up a second screen and everything?
I mean,
Maybe.
yeah, maybe. I know how to sec up. It looks like it's kind of.
Oh yeah, it's already set up that
Yeah, it
way.
looks like it set itself up. So.
Okay, I have to say, so far, in like the year and a half that I've been doing this, you're so far my most favorite presenter because you're sitting, which means you're not going to wander away from the mic and the screen.
Oh shit! Sorry.
No,
I can't.
I love it. I love it. It's
I hope that's all right. I've been sitting all day. I guess I just didn't want to stand.
No, I love it. It makes my life so much easier because I don't have to worry about where you're
Okay.
going to end up on the stage. So if you actually take that window back over here,
Uh huh. Oops.
you can do presenter mode.
Doesn't want to come back.
Come on, Mac. Give us the
Yeah.
window.
Give us the window.
Oh no.
There we
Oh,
go.
There we go.
Yeah, gonna be stingy about giving those windows back.
So where's the option? Oh, this is a PDF.
It can be something else though if it needs to be.
Can it be a slideshow? How did you make?
Illustrator.
Okay. No, I don't think it can be a slideshow.
Okay. Well, we can just.
You just disabled the layer, so you're gonna have to undo whatever you just did.
It's okay.
Okay, that works.
It's good now.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. Just, I guess you're gonna have to go back to full screen and do it manually.
Yeah, that's okay. Read mode. And then let me just drag it.
If you drag it over, you should be able to tell it to do full screen. So if you come over here and do window, is it window or view? Oh, it's view. Sorry. Go to view, full screen. There we go. And so now that's
Okay.
full screen, and now you have.
So then when I need to get my window back, I can just.
You can just click on it and do command to go back.
Command L does what?
Undoes the full screen over there.
Okay.
Oh, are you going to be live coding?
I'm gonna be live going through some code.
Okay. We'll need to
Okay.
make sure the size is the. It's fine. Just be aware you're going to end up having to put it on the other screen,
Yeah.
and you're going to need to make sure it's large enough that people can read.
Okay. I can just blow it like way out.
I won't lie. This might actually be easier if you just make sure anything sensitive is closed down and just mirror your screen. That might be easier for you, since otherwise you're going to have to work off of that tiny little screen.
I'll have to be. Okay. Well, we
We're
I
not
think
even.
I could turn too, right? Or not?
No, not really. That's kind of why we set that up, is because people kept looking over their shoulder to see what they were clicking on.
Okay. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll figure it out. Hopefully that won't be bad.
Let me see. Yeah, that's pretty small, wasn't it?
I figure if you can read it on that screen, they can definitely read it on the projector. That's usually the easiest way to determine.
Okay.
It should be Command plus increases the font size, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so just make sure you do that when you.
Okay.
Make sure the mic is in front of you so they can hear you.
Let me get my stuff up.
Talk into the front of it, not the top. You want to talk into the little logo.
Oh, okay, so the front.
Yeah. There you go.
Hey, can everybody hear me? Is it working? Okay. Are we good?
Yeah, you're good. Go.
Okay. So, hi everyone. Once again, I'm Leslie. I work for Mozilla. Yeah. Woo! Just real quick, by show of hands, who here has and I know Josh is going to, who's never done localization, who maybe doesn't even know what that word means? Knows? Okay. Victor knows now because I told him earlier. Okay. So, so this is funny to me that I'm even giving this talk because a year ago I had never heard of localization and had no idea what it entailed or what that even meant. But I work on a project called Firefox Monitor, and we released Firefox Monitor in the fall of last year with the goal for the quarter of having 10,000 signups. Firefox Monitor, if you don't know, is a service that leverages the Have I Been Pwned database to let users know when their email has been involved in a data breach. And our goal for the quarter was to have 10,000 signups. We released it in English only, and by the end of the week, we had something like 100,000. And what became immediately apparent was that our English only distribution was not going to work. We had things we never anticipated happening. We had foreign press, and we had users responding to these emails saying, we don't understand. I don't really speak that good of English, so can you please send this in my language? So with that, localization became something that I had to do, and I had never done it before in my whole life. So what I would like to do with this talk is just kind of touch on some of the major pain points that I experienced and help resolve, kind of revisit some of the fears and mysteries, things that I didn't know how to do that ended up actually not being so bad, because localization, like anything, is a big pain in the rump. Let's like that word. I didn't use a swear word. It's a big pain in the rump until you've done it a few times, and then it's really easy and it's no big deal, and it doesn't need to be a stumbling block at all. And also, don't be fooled by this first slide that looks okay. It turns out I'm really bad and lazy about making slides, and I don't like doing it. And making slides with code on them is an extra big pain in the rump. So the quality of my slides decreases dramatically and fast and quickly. Okay. And then, hey, I also need to know how to move this.
Wait, what are you doing?
It disappeared on me.
Oh.
Okay. We're back.
I guess you click on it.
Okay. All right. So I'm kind of figuring this out as I go. So the major part of localization and the 90% part of localization, as I see it, is something called internationalization. And you will see it referred to as I-18N because there are 18 letters between the I and the N, and that's a lot to write, and that's a lot to say. So if you've never seen I-18N, it means internationalization, and those two terms are used interchangeably. And when you are just starting out with this, that can become incredibly confusing because the other thing is that localization is referred to as L10N. So the internationalization is the really difficult part. And it is the process of implementing code that enables your website to become localized. I had a better, I think, term for that I've now completely forgotten. But it's laying the groundwork for localization to even happen. Setting up infrastructure and implementing the code that makes a multilingual site possible. If you're starting from scratch, it's really easy, but it's really hard to go back and retrofit a site that has been written completely in plain text, and fit it and sort of retrofit it as a localized website. So, sorry. Okay. All right, so no matter what localization framework you use, there are a couple of decisions that you'll have to make and a couple of things that you'll have to do on your own, no matter almost which localization framework you go with. It's falling. Okay. One of the things that I had absolutely no idea how I was going to do is how do you determine a user's language preference without asking them? How do you natively find out what language a user wants to see a site in and serve that up? And that can be done a number of ways. The easiest way and sort of like the least bona fide way is to ask. To ask the user to show the website in a default language and then surface something up that's like, do you want to see this in Spanish? Do you want to see this in whichever? And at scale, that becomes really impossible because one, you can't have that many links on your website. And then two, you're sort of relying on a user to, I'm gonna scoot this back just a little bit. You're relying on a user to hang around long enough to find your site, to find the link, and then you're relying on them to not just bail when they see what appears to be an English-only website. But that's one option, and it's certainly better than nothing. The second way, the second way, has anyone heard of an accept language header? We know what this is? Okay, great. So the second way to do, or another way to do this on the back end is to pull this out of the request. This is what we do in Firefox Monitor. And the catch with it is that unless you provide the user another option or another means of selecting a language, that user is now sort of married to this language. And it might not actually be the language they want to consume your content in. I've heard anecdotally from some of the guys who work on MDN that German citizens really like to read in English, even though if you were getting their preferred language this way from the request header, they would only ever see the site in German. So the other thing I like, though, about getting the preferred language this way is that it's less of a drag on the client. Another way to get the language is from the browser. If you've ever consoled navigator.languages, you'll see very similar to the accept language header, an array of the languages that a user likes to receive content in. The nastiest part of the internationalization process is getting all of the plain text out of the templates. This is sort of like the land of 1,000 gotchas. And if you've ever seen an HTML template that has been localized or internationalized, it can look really strange because there's absolutely no text anywhere to be found. And I'm gonna pull up. I'm gonna pull up our code for Monitor and just show you what our templates look like, because it can be a little bit disorienting. We're gonna try this, and I don't know how well. Can anyone read that? Or does it need to be like way bigger? It's, do what?
You might want to go with a light theme.
Go to light.
Presentation.
Okay. Do what? Yeah. Okay. I wonder if I could just, is Blixa anywhere? Maybe I can just share my screen and that would be easier than doing it through this thing. I can switch it easily enough, but I'm thinking that it might be easier just to share my screen instead of to kick it over here, because it, do what? Oh, God. So, someone recognized handlebars. Have you used handlebars very much? Yeah. How do you feel about it? You can do conditionals. I mean, you can write a custom helper. Okay. Do what? Yeah, we inherited handlebars, and by the time we realized that handlebars was probably not going to work out in the long term, it was too late. So we've kind of taken handlebars and turned it into our own like special monitor handlebars sauce. And now that we've internationalized, I will do almost anything before changing frameworks or a templating engine.
Wish you had chosen.
Do what?
If you could do it over, what would you have chosen?
You know, I don't know. I don't know what I would have chosen. I have never internationalized a site that wasn't handlebars, and so I don't know what the better option would be, honestly. Do what? I'm sorry?
They probably all suck at their own.
Yeah, that's kind of always been my experience with any framework, is that it's like got its uniquely crummy, I'm not supposed to swear, crummy aspects, and then things that make it sort of uniquely awesome. And so for us, handlebars was what we had, and it's what we stuck with, because to change was going, it felt like to be an astronomical upheaval. So, no, I can't see. So what you'll notice here is that there's no plain text. There's no plain text in the template. And what I mean by that are there's no strings, there's no content, there's no like, hey, this is me and I'm written only in English and I'm hard-coded from now until forever in this specific language. It's not there. What you see instead, hey, Luke, is there a way for me to just share my screen instead of sharing this?
We can mirror your screen.
Can we mirror my screen? I think that would be easier.
If you go to pull up your search. I don't know what your search is called.
My search.
Yeah, there's supposed to be a. John, how do you pull up the displays page again?
Oh.
There we go, command space. That's what I was looking for. If you press command space and
How
pick
many
display.
people?
There you go. Or display, not display. That's the one.
Yeah.
So go there. And do. Arrangement. Mirror displays. This is going to mess with your screen as well. But there you go. Alright, so now you can close out all of that. And it's now mirrored.
Gather windows?
No, just hit the X on that one. There you go. You're good.
Oh. Okay, can we see this? Is it still better in this, like the non-dark theme, or? It's like really low resolution on my screen. I don't know why, but it looks okay up there. Okay. Do what?
People in the back see it? You can see the important stuff.
Ish. Okay. So what's replacing the strings here are function calls to fetch the localized string. And this is where you can really get into some grief. So I'm going to pull up. Here's me looking for an example of what an example definition of localization, because I realized I really didn't have one. So if, and most people I think enter localization to this way, where you have a site and then all of a sudden you need to show it in another language, and you're stuck sort of retrofitting. And during the process of getting all the strings out of a template, basically everything, this headline becomes one string, and it's assigned a unique string ID. So instead of it existing in the element between opening and closing H1 tags, you have the H1 tags and they're empty. And what's replaced there is some function call to grab this string by its string ID. This also becomes another string. This is a string, the check for breaches is a string. These are all strings. They don't exist in the template beyond this function call with their string ID. And that seems really straightforward and really easy. And sometimes, depending on your content and the level of complexity with your content, it's the case. It's always easy. But then you get into things like this that become nightmares. And this is nested markup. If you can avoid nested markup, do it. It's almost impossible to get right at scale. And by nested markup, what I mean is text that is uniquely styled that is buried in other text. So like this, why would this be difficult? Because you have to wrap this number 2 in an opening and a closing tag. And almost always, someone, somewhere, sometime will forget to do a closing tag, and then your whole situation is thrown completely out of whack. It's a nightmare. In this instance, I don't know how much code we've written. Actually, I guess I could just pull it up to allow for this sort of like nested coloring purple, but it's a nightmare. If you can avoid it. You will get yourself into so much trouble. Other examples of nested markup that can throw you off are links. Embedded links are really, really hard to do. It's something that you wouldn't think of until you'd already spent an hour and a half scratching your head, like about how you're going to do it. So just avoid it if you can. Okay. Okay, so when you take all of these strings out of the template, they go into, in our case, I should have actually said this. So the localization system that we use is called Fluent.js. It was developed by Mozilla. It's still being developed by Mozilla. There's not a lot of documentation, but it's free, it's open source, and we've used it to great effect. And so if anyone has questions about something they're trying to localize, if they use Fluent.js, I can be pretty helpful. But so in this case, when the strings leave the template, they go into something called an FTL file, which is a Fluent file. And it looks like this. Anything with a hash before it is a comment, but like manage all emails. Oops. Can we see? Okay. So after you've decided how you're going to get the user's preferred language and you've gotten all of the content out of the templates, the next thing you have to decide is how you're going to call that content back into the template. And the way that we decided to do this was on the back end because we felt like it would be too much of a load on the client. There is. And so for every string, we send the ID, supported locales, and then Fluent has, this is, Luke, I'm starting to feel like maybe we do need a utils folder. Always. And so then what Fluent does is it goes and it takes the string ID, it looks to see if it's there, and formats it according to the formatting guidelines of that locale. I'm showing code, but I'm not really explaining it, and I don't think that that's doing much good. But another aspect of mystery that for me was who is going to localize this, and why can't we just do something like Google Translate? Something that I've learned is that Google Translate is not always accurate. It is not a meaning-based translation all of the time. It's usually just a word-based translation. There are so many services that will localize for you. If you can find somebody to translate it, that is so much better. Even within English locales, something that was brought to our attention via a GitHub issue was that we had text that said, take back control of your personal data. And for us, that was just an empowering statement. You take back control of your personal data. But in Europe, in England, take back control is a Brexit slogan, and we had no idea. Had we had a British native translating that into a British locale, they probably could have caught that and told us that maybe this is not like a political statement that you want to be making or even hinting at. So sometimes even if you are within your language, it's beneficial to have someone from that locale reading through and making sure that these cultural references that you might not even really be aware of are making sense in other places. And for today, I've obviously limited this to language, but localization applies to so many other things. Currency, if you have a shop, detecting the currency and showing prices in the currency of that locale. And then even things like list styles, stuff that you would never even really be cognizant of, or certainly I wasn't. Where are we? Are there any questions? Is anyone? Yes, Luke. I can show Pontoon. What I use to test Monitor and Chrome. Oh man. That's right. Okay, so when we've gotten all the strings into their FTL files, they go to live on this thing called Pontoon. And Pontoon is a place where localizers can create accounts and start contributing to projects by translating the projects into their locale. So like for Monitor website. And so these are all of the locales that Monitor has been translated into. I don't think that Pontoon is available for, Luke, I don't think that it's available for any. Yeah, you can't. Right. Do what? Yeah. Yeah. And so these are all of the Mozilla projects and sort of like status updates of where they are in their localization effort. Yeah. No. We could do that.
Could you repeat the question?
What is that Elvish, Tolkien Elvish script? Like the long. Every time I see, who was the one that I said, God, we really got screwed on letter forms? Was it Hebrew? That looks so pretty. I can't. Yeah, so there's actually, inevitably you're going to miss plain text, and one really good way to catch yourself in this is to translate your site into Klingon, because Klingon looks nothing like English, and so if there is some little bit of plain text hidden in your template somewhere, you will notice it instantaneously because it will not look like Klingon. So, okay. We're going to change. So what do we want to see monitor in? Just changing my browser settings? How did I know this? Okay. Add. So the thing that I was talking about earlier, the accept language header, or picking a user's preferred language out of the browser. Right now, I'm setting that. So I'm telling Monitor what language I want to see the site in. We'll pick Hebrew. Well, that was that was kind of a womp womp. Try. Okay, there we go. So here's Firefox Monitor in French. A few notes stylistically. I don't know how many of you participate in a lot of CSS, but something to never do is to put it, to set something like an unbreaking word line. Things must be able to wrap. And the reason for this is what looks like sign in English is like a sentence in a paragraph in more verbose locales like Germany. And so you can just really get yourself into some nasty stylistic trouble by imposing word wrapping. The other thing is don't impose capitalization. Words take on completely different meanings based on capitalization in other languages. That's something I didn't know, and we were apparently saying something profane in French because I was, via CSS setting something to capitalize. That's just a big no-no. Don't do it. You will hear about it. What are the other ones? I feel I had a list of these, and now the list is evaporated.
I got a question.
Yeah.
What's the best way to deal with things like screenshots where text is used? Since screenshots don't have text to easily translate, since it's just an image, is there a good way to handle that?
I think the way to handle that is just to serve it in the language that the user opted to take the screenshot in.
Well, no, I mean, if you're presenting a screenshot on a website, so like like say for instance you've got an application that you're showing that you're like say a help page for an application on a website.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So like, how would you dynamically generate that content?
Like that, yeah. Should
It
you
would-
dynamically generate
It would have to not be a screenshot.
Okay.
I mean, unless you had a screenshot in every locale and could determine the locale the user was in and then surface up that image based on the locale.
Okay.
I mean, which is doable. I know you I think sent like a puppeteer scraper through it and just took a screenshot in every available locale. You could do it that way.
I'm thinking like if you've got a desktop application and you've got the help on a web page, the desktop application you can't necessarily run that on the web, right? It's a desktop program.
I don't know that I'm understanding your
for instance,
question.
You're running an Adobe product and that
Yeah.
help is on a web page.
Right.
The Adobe product is not a web page, so you can't really.
Right. So I think with Adobe, you are setting with Creative Cloud, you are determining your language beforehand. So they're delivering those apps in whichever language you've kind of already chosen.
That's so if I go onto an Adobe product, let's say Illustrator,
Yeah.
and I go to the website for help, and they're showing a screenshot of something in the application. Like is leaving the text in English preferable to like say turning it into just blocks, colored blocks, or is there a good way to handle that screenshot when you can't dynamically generate it?
I think English as a default is a reality.
If you have access to screenshots in all locales, it would give you the prefix on the locale.
That's what was your answer?
If you have screenshots in all the locales.
That's it. Yeah, if you have screenshots.
You can have a tree structured under each locale.
Right. And so again, you're stuck taking a screenshot in every,
Fun.
right. But doable. And Josh has a question that I will repeat.
The some websites that work on instead of changing the text to the same URL, they'll redirect to
Yeah,
URL.
don't do it.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, so something that, right. Any SEO gurus out there before I sail down this path? Do I?
Repeat Josh's question.
Okay.
Line.
So Josh's question was, why do you not want to have a unique URL that is locale specific? So if someone were to land on Firefox Monitor, why would I not want this to be monitor.firefox.com/enus/ the rest of the URL? And the answer is because you will be supporting those pages in perpetuity till the end of time. If you have a lot of content and someone is to bookmark that content, if you don't support those URLs forever, those bookmarks suddenly lose all of their value. They evaporate. So that's something that is supported by SEO proponents, practitioners of SEO. You do get, I think, some search engine optimization gain, but you don't get enough gain from that alone to make it worth your while to clog up your storage forever. Would you agree with that, Josh? How many pages do you think that you are maintaining because they are localization specific?
It's at least tens of thousands.
Yeah, so tens of thousands. So that, yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious if anybody knows if the indexing algorithms actually change the headers for common languages
They change the headers.
for whenever they're indexing your website. If they might index your website and change it to French and index it. Like here in Canada, you'd want to index it in English. And
Right.
you want to try again in French. Does anybody know if that actually happens?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's something that we've talked about exploring because we know that.
What's the question?
Sorry. The question is the page indexed in other locales other than English? And the answer is, I don't know. We have heard that some of our users in Germany, when they search for Firefox Monitor, the search results are in English. And if there is a way to mitigate that to where you can still just show the one page without all of the URLs, that would obviously be enormously preferable, and to still show the search engine results in,
Yeah, I want to know, like Google, you can kind of go control some of your indexing. You can talk to Google and say, hey, come back and check my website I changed or something. I think you can.
yeah, and we've
I wonder if you can set languages and you can control that stuff.
I would imagine that you would have to, and we've talked about exploring this, and it's like there's just never enough time. Yeah. Do you localize the meta tags? And the answer is yes, we do. So all these get localized. Our Facebook, the Open Graph tags, all get localized. The Twitter card tag, meta tags, all get localized. Site description, site title gets localized. Everything.
As far as like Twitter tag, if they go out and scrape and cache that, are they going to be caching English but then
Are they hashing it? That's interesting. I
because since the URL's the same.
Yeah. So these tags, the content of the tags is generated at the time the user is on the site. So if they're hitting share or tweet or whatever from the site, I don't know. I don't know how that works. That would be interesting. Oh God. Oh God. Thank you. Okay. What?
I blame the microphone.
It was totally the microphone. So to the Twitter thing, I don't know. That's something that I hadn't thought about, and I don't get on Twitter a lot, so I haven't. And I also haven't tried. Do what? Yeah. Is what? Oh. Okay. Anything else? Any practical implementation things, or anyone thinking about localizing a website? They have to. They don't want to.
So you mentioned the pain that it is of nested markets.
Yeah.
So how have you addressed some of this?
One moment. So the pains with nested content can be mitigated if the content around which you are nesting markup is a noun or a verb or something that you can specifically call out and set as another string ID. So for instance, to make Firefox bold is significantly easier than to make some sort of arbitrary chunk of text bold. And that's because Firefox doesn't get translated. So I can send, let's see here. Trying to think of what a good example of this would be.
What, the user's name?
The user's name, a number, anything that isn't going to be translated. And the reason why a group of words is harder than just a single word is that because there's really no way to guarantee, in fact, you can guarantee that those words will not appear next to each other in other languages. They're grammatically different, their sentence structure is different. And so there's just no way to make sure that it's going to be the same.
So are you doing like an after the fact replace on the text, or you've got placeholders in the files?
Both. It's so in some instances you can send, if it's a noun or a verb, you can set it as a separate string ID. You get that verb as one string first, you wrap it in the markup, and then you send it as a variable to the next string. So if I need running to be italicized, I set running as a separate string, I set its own standalone string. I capture that, I keep it, I wrap it in markup, and then I send it to the sentence that is, I was running down the street, where it needs to be italicized. And I'm trying to find an example of that because we do it a lot. It's how we got that purple number 2 on the scan results page. It's how we stylize users' emails as purple. We have a lot of purple callouts on the site. And those are all sort of compound strings. One is the string with the markup, and then the other one is the sort of housing sentence. So, do what? Yeah, that would be, so in that instance, I'm just wrapping, yeah, here it is. So these are the arguments that I'm sending to the breach. One is the breach, do what? Bigger again? Is that it? Can we see? No, still no? Okay, so for instance here, these are the arguments that get sent to the string. And then in the FTL file, the fluent file where all of the strings are, we do some logic to say, is this plural or is this singular? And that's based on the breach count. So if a user has multiple breaches, we have to pluralize all of the responses. And obviously if there's 0, that's a separate response. If there's 1 breach, that's a singular response. The name of the breach is right here, and since that doesn't change for each locale, it's easy to wrap it in separate markup because you're not sending the markup in the string file. You're sending it after the fact And there's nothing for a localizer to like really goof there because they're not having to be mindful of where the opening tag is and where the closing tag is. Does that make any sense? Sure. It won't make sense. It's so the FTL files right now, and maybe it's just because there's not a lot of documentation, are a little esoteric feeling. There are a couple gotchas of like, this has to be an exact amount of space, but I'll pull it up. Okay, so here is an example of a string that can appear in two forms. One appears in one known breach, and then every other case is marked by this other and appears in X known, 2, 3, 4 known breaches. This breach count is what we were looking at before. We tally that up someplace else and then send it to this file. And from there, the file can flit through and find the correct response. So again here, this is another example of something that we wrap that has nested markup, but it's not in this file. It's sent at runtime as we're trying to serve up the right response. So basically, as long as you're not hard coding markup into this file, your chances of success are vastly greater. And this is something I had to learn the really hard way because I insisted on sending markup through these files, and I did not listen to our localization in chief named Flawed, who would be so ashamed of all the things that I've forgotten to say. You think Flawed's awake in Italy? I'll bet you he is. What was there, did I?
Do you ever have to localize input that you get from the user back to you? Like translate it, or is there any like adaptations that you have to make when you're getting input?
No, but we also don't have, sorry. Do we ever have to localize input coming to us from the user? And the answer is no, but we don't really have any channels for doing that beyond, we don't really have many channels for receiving user information beyond, GitHub and Bugzilla, and then occasionally users respond to the emails that we send, in which case those are not read by us because of privacy concerns. So no. And doing that on the fly would be, yes, Luke?
We did have one sort of set of strings that were not ours to localize, and that was Troy's from how many, he has a bunch of data classes. So we're sort of dynamically getting those from Troy, but we just have like a hard code. Do we have, yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Data classes have hard code.
Are you referring to like a phone number? Like you strip all the
Right, yeah, the different
parentheses and
formats,
spaces out of it, just store it.
date formats change.
Right.
All sorts of stuff do change, and time, like, there's local time, so you want to make sure everything is like a universal time code and then translate it. But
Right.
that output is simple enough, or direct enough, or like coming back and have more complications. And I just wondered, does anybody have to deal with that?
Yeah.
Pattern match regex.
We're not really programmatically translating anything either. I mean, our translations are done by individuals. So I don't know if we were to try to programmatically translate something, it would probably be like, something like a Google Translate. Because I don't know how you would derive like a meaning-based translation without a human being in the pipeline somewhere. Anyone else got anything? Any nightmare stories of localization? Have I made this out to be worse than it is?
I do, but we have time.
We don't have time. Okay. Well, I'm a notoriously poor Slack checker, but I'm going to get better. On Techlahoma, what is it? Do you call them handles? Handles is Leslie. And if you get into a localization situation and you need a hand, please don't hesitate to reach out, and I will get back to you faster than I have historically gotten back to people on Slack. Nice. All right, thank you guys.